Tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about jumbo frets, which are found in one of the main places to find them is on the American Performer guitar, also the American Special guitar, and the Fender Highway One. They're all iterations of the same guitar. I really love jumbo frets. I hadn't played them that much till fairly recently, and when I bought a Fender Highway One, I really liked them. So tonight we're going to look a little bit at some jumbo frets. Let's start out by looking at the guitars. I'm going to show you first a Japanese Telecaster with small frets, and then the middle guitar, which is the American Professional, which is what you find on most guitars these days, which is some kind of medium jumbo fret. And then we'll look at the jumbo frets on the Highway One, which are the same as you would see on the American Special or the American Performer. Those are basically kind of three evolved versions of the same guitar. Let's look at those quickly and then talk some more about jumbo frets. Before we look at those, I'd like to humbly ask you to subscribe to this channel. I'm really trying to up my subscriber base, and we talk about guitars. I play guitar on here quite a bit, and we also talk about music, albums, and so on. And I hope you'll consider subscribing. Now let's look at the next of those guitars and the different three main fret sizes, at least for Fender. Now, this is my awesome Blue Flower Telecaster, made in Japan. I really like it. So it's not either or. It's to some extent apples and oranges. But this has what are called vintage small frets. So let's look in here a little bit. Let's see if we can get a better angle on this. See those, from what I understand, those are about as small as the frets can get on a Fender. See that? Let's see if we can. Pretty small. This is my white, Olympic white, American Professional Strat 1. By the way, I know I've got the 2 out, which I think has pretty much the same neck. And this is what you commonly see with frets. Now, these are called medium jumbo. So you can see they're a good bit bigger than those small ones. And these are considered kind of a compromise. They're still jumbo. By a lot of standards, these would be pretty large frets, but they're not as big as the ones I'm going to show you in a minute, which are my Highway One, which are the jumbo size. But these are a compromise. You get a lot of the benefits of jumbo frets here, but they're just pared back enough that they give you a little more control over bending. Let's see. That camera doesn't like these close-ups. There you go. See. This is my Fender Highway One. It's fast become my favorite guitar. And I did a review of it when I first got it, and it was positive, but I'm way more positive on it now. You know, I've played it. I think I've played it enough that I've learned how it feels more. And I also think sometimes when you play guitar, you kind of break it in. I don't know if that's a myth, but I feel like when I play it now, I can tell I've been playing it. But let's look at these frets. Now, those are some honkers. Those are jumbo frets. Those are huge. Look at that. Those are jumbo frets, ladies and gentlemen. See that? And when you bend down on those bad boys, it's like those strings. It's like a trampoline. Boom, bouncy, 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 bouncy. And especially bass strings, I really notice it. And another thing is, I've always used this upper part of the neck, but now I feel like I can play. A lot of times when you play guitar, if you're like me, there's certain kind of sweet spots on the guitar. You know, we always end up playing around here, around the 5th fret, on these strings. And I don't know about you, but I've often kind of avoided certain parts of the neck. Maybe that's just because I learned on guitars that weren't as good when I was a kid. And I feel like I know the neck well. You know, I've been playing a long time. I feel like I know the neck, but there are certain parts of the neck and positions I would, tend to not use as much. This thing with these jumbo, I guess it's the jumbo frets. This thing, I find myself playing up here. You get a different sound. Everything is really clean. A lot of times on another guitar, when you play way up here, you can do it, but it doesn't, it doesn't sound as good. But this thing, it really sounds good. You can play all the way up in these bass notes way up here, and I'm pretty sure the frets have something to do with that. I like those jumbo frets. I think they're cool. Ibanez, a few other companies make jumbo frets, and the term jumbo fret, to some extent, is a marketing thing. So that can mean different specs to different people. But here in these three Fender guitars, you get real jumbo frets, and and they're great guitars. So I think rather than just thinking of like an American Performer as a way to get an American guitar and save a little money or something, and maybe get a case, you should think of it as a different kind of guitar with these jumbo frets. It's a pretty big difference, really. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my take on jumbo frets, because I've had this Highway One for a while with these jumbo frets, and the neck is the same. It's the same neck basically as the American Special, the American Performer. So I'm kind of talking about the neck of these guitars. They really haven't changed the neck much, maybe the finish, but not the neck itself and the playing aspects of the neck. And I think the jumbo frets make this a very distinct option. And once in a while you'll see on YouTube people that prefer the Special or the Highway One or the Performer, not just because they save $400, but because they like it better. And and I've decided I like it better too. I like the jumbo frets. Now, so with jumbo frets, the string is pushing down here's the jumbo fret. The string is pushing down more, and that's what gives it that kind of bouncy feel, that kind of trampoline feel that's so great for playing. With small frets, you have less of an angle, an incline, and so there's less give. So with small frets, the string is flusher to the fretboard. Up here, you've got that big, pushy, bouncy effect, and that's what makes bending so cool on jumbo fret. So when you hear guitar players say they like jumbo frets, they're probably playing lead, and they're probably loving that kind of bouncy, elastic feel that's so good for blues or hard rock. But the thing is, because of all that kind of extra space there's a risk that when you play a lot of chords and you're doing things where intonation is really key, it's a lot harder to control. Now, I find that if I really practice and I'm very attentive to it, I can control that by working with technique. But I still think if you like jumbo frets, you're probably liking it because you're thinking of people like Stevie Ray Vaughan, who love jumbo fret guitars, and that big kind of bouncy, rubbery feel you get when you can really play, because of that kind of angle that those jumbo frets give. But by the same token, if you were playing a lot of really country or jazz or things that really required a lot of chording with really subtle voicings, you probably are going to prefer this because it's going to tend to be more accurate. But this for all its all its risks as a player, this really gives you a lot of pushback. That guitar sort of comes to life with those jumbo frets. It just sort of vibrates when you push down. And I especially notice it on the bass strings. So I think a jumbo fret guitar is excellent for blues and hard rock and blues, things like that. And it's especially, I think, good for bass strings or playing up the neck. I wanted to talk a little bit about the jumbo frets tonight. And let's start by looking at three guitars. We're going to look at my made in Japan Fender Telecaster, which has small frets, and that was pretty typical in a lot of guitars. And then these are jumbo frets here, And then we'll also look at what's quite common now, which is kind of the compromise fret, which is excellent. The medium jumbo, which you would see on the American professional guitars and probably a lot of their other guitars too, the medium jumbo. And I think that's considered kind of the best, it's best overall fret. So my take on it is those are great, and depending on what you want to do, you might want to go medium jumbo. But if you like blues, if you like guitar players like Stevie Ray Vaughan, people that really just bend the crap out of the strings, and you know, they're not playing Autumn Leaves or something, and, you know, if they're really playing, you know, like heavy blues, you might want to consider this, not just because you can save some money, but because it's a better option for you. Depends on what kind of music you want to play. But I love these jumbo frets. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Let's look at those three guitars and just kind of look at the different frets. Quick clip of my Highway One, a little excerpt where I'm playing some of the bass strings, and it's just such a creamy, rich sound. And it's hard to say what that's from. It's a good amp. I've got a nice pedal on it, the Keeley Dark Side. And, you know, other good guitars do it too. I'm sure my Tellys and my other Strat would also sound good on it. But this one just has a really rich, creamy, fat sound. And I attribute some of that to the jumbo frets. Listen to this. I think these areas on the higher strings, those are the sweet spots of the guitar. You know, the top three strings. But to me, where the jumbo frets really sing is when you get into these lower frets, and you get that really big, bouncy kind of trampoline feel that just lets you you feel like you can push to the moon and back on those. And look at a couple of these clips. And I also think, I've heard people say that the wideness and size of the frets gives it a fatter sound. That might be, you know, there's a lot of mythology, and it's kind of one of those ideas that's fuzzy enough to kind of make some sense and stick around, but you're never quite sure what it means. But some people say that the huge size of these frets gives it a fatter sound. And I don't know, but I definitely think you get a nice, fat, creamy bass sound out of these things for lead. Listen to a couple of these little clips. So anyway, that was my take. I love my American Professional. I love my Tellys with the medium jumbo, and I've got that Blue Flower, which has the small frets, and it plays great. There is not a thing wrong with it. I think that would be a great option for a lot of guitar players. But if you're looking for guitar for Christmas, you know, the holidays are coming up, and you're looking at the Performer, or I guess now would probably be a used American Special or a used Fender Highway One, which are getting harder to get, by the way. I would think of them not just as sort of maybe a more affordable alternative, but actually something that's pretty different, that it's got a different feel. And if you like the blues, I recommend you try those out, because I think, and you like playing leads, and you like using those bass strings on leads and being able to bend notes really comfortably. I think you should look at one of these guitars, not because they're a way to save some money, but because they really have a extra oomph to them when it comes to bending strings. And I attribute that to jumbo frets. So when people say that, you know, these are kind of more affordable American guitars, you know, Fender kind of wanted to have the main guitar, which is the American Professional, which used to be the American Standard, And then usually there's an upcharge, like the American Ultra, the American Elite, or whatever. And then you go to the custom shop, and then maybe kind of one that's a little more pared back. That's what this is in a way. But it's not just sort of a less expensive guitar with some features left off or something. These jumbo frets make it a viable alternative to any of those other guitars that don't have them. If you want really good guitar with jumbo frets, and you want to play, I'm just using Stevie Ray Vaughan. If you want to play Stevie Ray Vaughan or stuff like that, that kind of Texas blues, a lot of bending, I think you should look at this as something you should buy for your guitar setup just on its own, not because it's a budgetary thing or something. I love these jumbo frets. I think they sound killer. They play great. Once in a while, the one thing I'll notice with jumbo frets is you got to be careful. They wobble, if that makes sense. And you can hear it, especially if you've got a lot of gain on the guitar, which, if you're playing that kind of music, you likely will have a lot of gain on the guitar. They're kind of very wobbly, and if you don't just hit them exactly right, they'll buzz out on you. But listen to this little very short clip on the last kind of note that it hangs on. You can hear that wobble, and just listen. It kind of fuzzes out a little bit. You really got to watch it with these jumbo frets, but it's fun and it makes you a better guitarist. The other thing they say about these jumbo frets is they can be really noisy, especially if you've got a lot of gain on it. Every little movement is just accentuated. So I really watch it like any kind of movement with my hand, just blast through the amp. You'll notice in this little clip, I'm putting my hand up on the guitar to rest it so I can let the note hold and sing, because anything I do with that hand just makes the you've really got to watch it. It's like an actor on a stage. If you've ever been in a play, one of the hardest things to do is just with your hands, it's kind of nervous energy. You always want to be doing something. And you'll notice how I put my hand up there, and I'm just trying my best to minimize any kind of extra noise and let the guitar just play. And it's really hard because you get kind of lazy if you're not careful, and every little movement you make with your hand makes noise, and that seems to be more of an issue with these jumbo frets. So if you watch how I put my hand, I rest my hand during these holds, and I also in one part use my right hand to kind of tap down on the other strings nearby, because they just they're so ready to just start playing along, and except they're not what you want. So watch my right picking hand here, and I'm really trying my best to minimize the noise that this guitar makes, and some have attributed that to jumbo frets. It's another kind of issue where you're never really sure the cause, and any guitar is noisy when you got it really cranked with a lot of gain on it. But I notice it, and I really try to. But again, it makes you a better player, because you don't want a lot of nervous hand movements that come across when you play. So it's something I'm trying to work on as a guitarist. But you'll notice in this one section, I kind of take my right hand, the picking hand, and I put it up on top of the strat, and just I'm trying to figure out something to do with it. Well, I don't want it anywhere near those strings, because it can be noisy. Mostly, if you're careful, you just can make them sound great, and you just feel like you have so much freedom to bend those strings. Sometimes when you play with guitars with thinner frets, you don't realize it, but you're kind of pulling back, and it's kind of a natural learned behavior that you have when you're playing with those kind of guitars. But with this, you play it a while, and you suddenly realize, man, I can bend this thing to China and back, I mean, and it frees you up to play. And so I really like these guitars. And now that I've played this Highway One, I'm recommending it in some ways over the other guitars. Now, there are some things like with the American Performer and the American Special and the Highway One that are not included. I think there's some things with the bolt-on neck that some people think are a little more high-end on the upper-end guitars. But this is a great guitar. These three guitars are great guitars. And I think they're made for that kind of music. This Highway One is made for that kind of blues rock. That's what it's for. I mean, and it's, in a way, it's more for that. It's more targeted to that kind of music. And if you like that kind of music, you should consider one of these guitars. Not just to save money, but because they might be better for you. Thank you. Good night.